On today's episode, I speak with music Carolyn, incredible person who teaches us so much about how every tragedy and health issue and transition was this huge learning experience for getting back to herself. Welcome to the Holistic Life Navigation Podcast, where we explore life through the lens of somatics. I'm Luis Mujica, a somatic educator who teaches people how to find safety in themselves. Your turn to learn begins now. Okay, welcome, Carolyn Owens. Welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much. I go by Music Carolyn, so let me get my Zoom name correct. But yeah, we're here.
So this is cool because, so those of you listening, I think it's, let me check, episode 43, I had someone named Carolyn Carter on the show. And you're the second Carolyn who I met through the comments section on Instagram. And so there's something about Carolyn's out there. But there's just once in a while someone comes along that says things to me that just resonate. Like I feel like we're, relatives. And when I hear that, I think I need to meet this person. I want to talk to them. I want to hear their story. And that's you. You bring this beautiful wisdom to these things that you write to me and to us. And your voice is gorgeous. I have the one stuck in my head.
Oh, amazing.
Which I hope after this you can give us the permission and the MP3. I'd love to play it for everybody.
Yes, please. It is, we make music to share it.
That's right.
As much as we like to say that it does feed us, there's something about affecting someone else with the feelings that we had when we created it that just feels like creating community out of nothing. So yes, please share.
Yeah. Is that the beauty of music is like I can feel an experience, celebrate it through a song, and then other people feel it in their body.
Yeah. Like immediately. It's otherworldly, right? It doesn't take time. It's not like a meal or something like that. We're like, I think it tastes good. I think we had a good time. It's going to affect you.
I like that you said immediately as well, and otherworldly, because it does transcend like the Earth's time and rotation. It's beyond all that. It's this immediacy of connection to the body of either, oh, I like that, I don't, I feel this, I don't. There's something that happens no matter what.
Yeah, that's true. Someone sent me music yesterday that I didn't particularly like, and I said to myself, oh wow, I really don't like this. You know what I mean? Like it was immediate. And I think that's the gift, right? Like we know that it comes from some other place too. So then obviously our reaction to it is going to be a little more spiritual than, actual or factual. It's hard for us to control those feelings.
So even when you say it comes from another place, I experience it that way. What does it feel like for you in your body when it comes from that other place? How does it enter you? How does it meet you?
It has become a part of me. My mother, I always say that people ask me, when did you start doing music? And I always say from the womb. My mother is a gospel choir director and sang incessantly and plays incessantly. And so it really has just always been a part of me. So I don't know a life that doesn't have music in it. I've had a few detours and some time off before, but in terms of answering your question, like when I get a song or I get an idea, there's a peace that comes over me. It's almost like a blanket or it's a portal. I imagine my dad was a Star Trek fan. And so I imagine when they would do those teleports, you have to go and stand under the light. You have to be completely still and then you're gone. I feel like that's exactly what it is. It's almost like those words or that melody or whatever is the light and I stand under it and then I get transformed to this other place.
And I really feel, I once watched this Philip Glass documentary and he was saying something like, I listen for the music. I don't make it. I listen for it. Yeah. And that's my experience as well. It's very humbling, isn't it? It's like it comes to you, you follow it, and it just happens.
It just happens. It is so, it's humbling, but then it's also this thing that can make you feel like you're on top of the world. It's the highs and the lows for sure. So
tell us about you, Music Carolyn. Tell us, Let me think about this for a minute. How did you get to this place in your life where you have this sense of self? You seem, just from things you've written to me, this practice of safety in yourself, of being like the song, the one that they'll hear at the end. This
Yeah.
just love and celebration of self. Like, was music your teacher? How did you get to this place? Tell us about that.
I think rejection was my teacher.
Ooh,
I almost feel like we get to certain extremes because we've gone to the depths of the opposite of
that's
that.
right.
And so I will say, I don't share this with a lot of people, but I went to preschool with Beyonce. And obviously, if she wouldn't have become Beyonce, I probably wouldn't have remembered her. I just
Yeah.
remember her as the girl who used to sing in preschool, and everyone said she can sing better than me. And so
Yeah.
that was my experience, kind of
Mm,
always feeling like I had a talent, but feeling like someone else was better than me, that
mm.
it belonged to someone else, that career or that whatever I wanted out of life was inaccessible because someone else was better. Now, obviously, she became and is one of the greatest performers we have that is alive. So comparison is not a thing, right? I can't be compared to
Yes.
her. But this is also a reminder for me because one of my first jobs in the music industry was Sony Music. And one of the first tours I went out on was Beyonce's Dangerously in Love tour. And so this full circle moment where the person who I felt was not able, I couldn't compete with her, right? I couldn't do the talent shows. I knew she was going to be in certain talent shows. So throughout my childhood, there was almost this avoidance of trying to pursue music because obviously I wasn't going to be as successful or as good as she was. And
Hmm.
then here I am, the person who is charged with creating her meet and greets in her first tour.
Wow.
And she is, nervous and happy, but she's also embarking on something new, and I get to be a part of that, and we have to get through it together, obviously in two different ways, but we have to get through it together. And
Did she remember you from school?
I don't think she remembered me. She was very gracious, when I said, we went to La Petite together and Miss Darlette, we had the same dance teacher as well and everything. And I don't think she remembered me, but she was very gracious and saying, it's crazy how the world works. And I
Hmm.
remember her saying that because I'm like, yeah, like, obviously I didn't go into like, I was scared to pursue
Hmm.
music because I knew you were going to be successful. um,
Were
but this
you making music at this time when you were working with her?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and we'll get to that, but I'll just say when I say rejection, what I mean is my own self-rejection, right? Is me continually disqualifying myself. I never had an
Mm,
experience where Beyonce said you can't sing
mhm.
or anyone in our circle. It was just like maybe she could sing better than you or what have you. But I throughout my childhood would disqualify myself to let other people shine because I didn't want to compete.
Let's pause. Let's pause. I just need people to hear that. I would disqualify myself to let other people shine. I just
Mhm.
want everyone to feel that because what we call rejection sometimes doesn't come from the outside. And I think I love how you just put that. That's important to me.
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah. That was a big moment for me to just remind myself I really do have my own path. And whatever it entails, nothing is stopping it from happening but myself. And so I've had this lesson throughout my life. Um, I've been married twice, but in my second marriage, um, I had the same thing of feeling like I needed to sacrifice myself and the things I wanted to do in life because I was a mother. And also, and I can say my ex husband was not someone who didn't support my dreams. We had actually performed together for some time, but there was this feeling that my responsibility was to my children, and trying to pursue other things was not only futile, but just like a waste of time. Like I'm supposed to support them, that type of thing. Again, all coming from me.
all yours. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that
um,
awareness.
and I felt like I was just dying as I became a mother, and that's when my therapy started. And I've been in therapy now about 11 years. My daughter's 11, but as soon as I had a child, I said I
Mhm.
am not the same person, and I need help.
What did that look like? Tell us what that means to you. I have a child. I'm not the same person. What were you feeling?
This was love and I can call it love now because the depths of it are markers of love that I now have for myself. But at the time, it was an overwhelming, obsessive type of love that came with all of these fears that I had never felt, and this responsibility that I had never felt, to the point where I literally would force myself physically and mentally to do a lot more work than I needed to do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And, you know, I don't share this a lot, but I got to a point where I was working, especially on the weekends, literally around the clock, like not sleeping at least 2 days a week, because some of the work that I was doing at the time allowed me to kind of make this unlimited amount of money. If I wrote a certain number of things, then I could make more money. And if I had more money, then we could move into a bigger house. We live in LA, so it's very important for me to have my family be in a home. And I knew I could do it. I could do it. And all of this to my own detriment and health and sanity. And it just got to a point where I needed to save myself. And that meant also, if I was going to save myself, then other people were going to get less of what I had given before.
Let's pause there. I just want people to feel these moments of wisdom. Because to save myself, people were going to have to get less, right? Which means there was this self-sacrifice of your own health and time and needs for other people, and you had to pull that back to replenish.
Right. And again, because it wasn't something that other people were begging me for, it's just my own expectation of who I wanted to be as a mother, you know, how I wanted to be seen and what I was able to provide for my children. And so once I got to this epiphany, I quit most of my jobs. Well, eventually all of them. So I had a very lucrative job in the entertainment industry. I quit that. And then I also had a second and third job, and I quit those.
No, wait, I'm going to pause you. Whenever you say something that I think is amazing, I have to pause you. And I have to also say out loud, because Camille is listening to this, she's going to be like, this is my kind of girl. Because Camille quit her job. Camille loves Beyonce. Camille loves learning through your children. Like, this is just for Camille. We're doing this just for Camille right now. So what I love about this, for people listening, tell us why saving yourself meant quitting your jobs.
I needed to reevaluate who I was. And because my work was not only the thing that gave me validation, but it was also the thing that I could use to provide for my family. And if I erased that, not only would they have to recalibrate and figure out who I was, but I would have to figure out who I was, because I'd no longer have those things around me. I mean, I worked at Entertainment Tonight and The Insider. I could do pretty much anything in celebrity. You know, I met all the people every day. They walk past my desk. You know, random celebrities would ask me to lunch. Like, there was a certain amount of self-importance that I had, not only with the money that I was making, but also in the title or the station or the role I was in, that kind of made me think that I was more higher than I was, when I wasn't even healthy. I wasn't even happy. I would come to work almost every day, and it wasn't the people. Again, it wasn't the people. It was the fact that I was stretching myself beyond my limits, beyond my capacity, which we talk about a lot. And I got to a point where I literally walked into work and I would be tense, like my whole neck and my shoulders, everything would be tight and tense. And then the headache started, and it was nobody but me. And so, to answer your question, the quitting of the jobs literally took God telling me, you have to quit. Like, the two side jobs that I had were very lucrative, and it was very simple for me. It was work that was easy for me. And I could make crazy amounts of money over the weekend just from like writing recipes to explain how, like, of course I'm going to take the work.
Yeah.
And long story short, trying to quit that job was the hardest because it was flexible on time, it was unlimited, and there was really no clock in or clock out, right? It was the work was available. You would kind of log in, if you will. You would assign yourself certain stories, and you would get the money. And so, telling the superior that was supporting that job that I was quitting, she was like, "Well, you can just do less, do whatever you can." And I said, "No, I literally have to stop working for you."
See, let's pause there again, because what I'm hearing when you say this is something that happens to a lot of parents that we don't talk about enough. Is when we have our children, just like you said earlier, there was this sense of urgency to create like the best life for her. And that becomes the flight trauma response. And that flight response adrenalizes us and really propels us into overworking because there's this like hovering threat of loss, right? And so, right, so when I hear you talk about I couldn't just back up, I couldn't just do a couple hours, I had to leave. I see it as the way we work with addiction. Like the little crumbs of feeding off of that job were too much of a dopamine hit for you. Like you wanted to completely detox from it, right?
I had to. And so that was hard because I was the breadwinner and I'm used to being the breadwinner. That also comes with a certain amount of power and influence that, if I'm honest, again, kind of helped identify me and make me feel valued.
That's right.
And having to depend on other people, even though I was married at the time, was very difficult for me because I knew the idea of a lifestyle that I had was different than what he had. So there was a general thought of enough is enough. I'm like, no, bigger, better, louder.
That's right. There's no ceiling for you.
Yes. And so all of this kind of hit ahead. We had to sell our home.
Because you quit?
It's complicated.
Okay.
So I had my twins. I try not to say this, but I will say as a
you say whatever feels good for you, whatever feels good for you.
Right. I just want to make sure I respect my ex-husband. We do co-parent and I have a great deal of respect for him. But our financial situation changed about 6 months after I gave birth to my twins. I have twin boys. And so when that happened, there was this decision that because I'm on maternity leave at this point, which meant I'm only doing 2 of the 3 jobs I have.
Yeah.
Do we sell so that I can at least have a few more months on maternity leave, or do I kind of rush back to work because things had changed for him? And I just got this visceral feeling that I was the only one who wanted the house. I was the only one willing to like do whatever it took to keep the house. And there was a great amount of guilt in that. Like, you know, you have him probably feeling bad about the fact that you have to sell, but this was not his project. He didn't have, this is not his biggest desire. You know, this is all you. So now you have to give it up and kind of accept that this is not probably something that you can sustain together because the vision is not the same.
But you chose in that moment, let's sell the house instead of me go back to work. That was a choice you made.
That was a choice I made because there were so many programs, just to be practical about it. There were so many programs that would keep people in their homes, especially in California. So I could have stretched, I could have applied for assistance and those types of things. But there was almost this moment like, if it costs you all of that.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And then what did that feel like, letting go of the house? Was it painful? Was it easeful? All the above? Like, what was it like?
It was like taking my heart out.
So let's feel that together. Yeah, tell me about that. Like
the night that we had to move, the truck was fully packed up and there were a few last things that were there. And I'm sitting in the driveway bawling because this was the house, you know. And he is perfectly fine. And again, full respect for my ex-husband, but he's perfectly fine. Like, we have to go. We're done. It's late at night. We've been moving all day. Let's be done. And I had such anger towards him because he was able to accept what clearly I had accepted, right?
That's right.
But this is the last point of letting go. This was the last straw. This was the last time I would sit in that driveway, and it was my home.
And when you say letting go, you don't just mean letting go of a house. You mean letting go of an identity, a story, this thing that you worked so hard to make for your, like, it was a life
those
letting
were all
go.
the thoughts in my head. I think, thank God for men, or the typical man, I would say, they're like, on today, we have moved, we are leaving in 10 minutes.
Right.
What is all of this? But Louise, what you just said, that's how I was feeling. It was letting go. In that moment, I was letting go of all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very painful.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time in my head, I blamed him or what have you for not being able to, take care of me or take care of the things that we were able to support. And then I reminded myself again, he never signed up for that. This was not, and now some husbands will say, I will take care of you. I don't want you to work, or those types of things. That's never been, him. And then that's also never been me. I never said I wouldn't work. I never said, that if something happens, you'll be able to take care. Like, that was not the conversation.
Well, there's this pattern I'm seeing that you're sharing that I love, where, like, as people say, the calls are coming from inside the house. Like with Beyonce in school, it was your idea that you shouldn't sing because you weren't as good. Yeah. And then with him, it was your idea that you should have this kind of life. Like, there was these stories that you told yourself and were clinging to. Yes. And I think we do that in the name of the other person until we realize it's coming from us.
It's all coming from me. And so, in other words, that started the journey to me literally starting to say, okay, we got a lot of expectations, girl, but we also need to take care of ourselves. So
when was that?
What's going to be more important, you or these expectations you've built up for yourself? And the issue with the expectations I had built up for myself was they were all real for me. I was not pulling this out of nothing.
That's right.
Right? My mother and father married my whole life. They made it to death do you part. My dad died in 2019. They were very happy. In my 7th grade summer, after coming from Los Angeles, we moved into a brand new home that was custom made. Like, that was a surprise. Coming home from summer vacation in LA to a brand new house in my own room that was designed and everything. So these expectations and dreams that I had were something I experienced in my childhood. So this was not me watching TV. This was not me trying to make up for something I was missing. And
that's important.
It was trying to maintain.
That's the word. Yeah.
Very idealistic life that in my head was not idealistic.
And that was burdening you. This thing that you thought you had to maintain was actually going against your health and your wellness.
Yes, and I know that now because that's the thing my parents didn't have. Although they weren't the healthiest, they didn't exercise much, they were very happy. They were very affectionate towards one another. They very much had social lives. And by social lives, I mean they would go out together and then come home.
Wait,
my mother would go to church.
I hear it. So let's pause here for a minute. Because what I want to know, and I'm sure people listening want to know this, you inherited this idea of quality of life. You inherited this idea of identity and what I should be. You believed it was your idea. Then you started noticing it wasn't working for your health. It wasn't working for your life. You weren't happy. You started making the choice of releasing these things that were your identity. The house was like the final crux. Then where did you start actually getting in touch with what you wanted instead of what you thought you were supposed to want?
Okay, so for 6 years, I didn't sing or perform or anything. And this was, like I said, as soon as I had my daughter and then my sons, my twin boys. During that time, it was almost like a love-hate relationship. I was just like, I can't do it. I work too much. I have to take care of my children. They're very young, very challenging kids. And when I say challenging, I mean they're very confident. They know what they want.
Oh, yeah. I have one.
Infancy and toddlerhood, it was like crazy.
Yeah.
So I literally just gave up.
Mm.
on music. But then, like I said, it started to really kill me inside. And so by the time, hmm, I think by the time my boys were, you know what? A very defining moment came. My boys were toddlers. Like I said, I quit all my jobs. So this is when my boys were about 2-ish and my daughter was 5, 6-ish.
You're
And
still in the house?
no, we're out of the
You're
house.
out of the house. Okay.
Yeah. So we're, and like I said, that the house moment was when it kind of started. That, and then that's when I quit all the jobs, not too long after. And then um I started to sing again, but I had no real work. I was on unemployment. I was in therapy, but on unemployment and like not making anywhere near what I had made the year prior, depending and being supported by my ex-husband at the time, and just really, for the most part, unhappy. But knowing, because I had the time, I could sing again. And so, long story short, an old choir member called and said, I want you to do this wedding. And I'm fast forwarding. And so I plan to sing the solo at this wedding. This wedding's gonna be in Santa Monica. It's gonna be beautiful. I'm getting dressed for this wedding to sing a solo for the first time in years. And my son falls from the window of our apartment.
What does that mean?
He is alive and he is well, but that means I don't go to the wedding to sing that day. And I'm literally in the dress I was supposed to be singing in at the hospital trying to make sure my son, who has, traumatic head injury, is going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that became my day. And it was another reminder of like, you're a mom, you're trying to do too much.
Right.
You can't like give it up type of thing.
Yeah.
And I just kept having these things happen to me. In 2019, I had thyroid nodules. And so they tell you, if you do this surgery, there's a possibility you won't be able to speak or you won't be able to sing again and those types of things. But it was obstructing my windpipe. And so here it is, 2019. I had to go and get surgery. But before I had that surgery, I started to record again because my thought was, if I don't finish these songs and I can't sing again after this surgery, then I'm done. Like I don't even have record of singing some of the songs I wanted. So the real thing came from the fear of maybe never being able to sing again.
Mm.
And that's probably the start of me saying, well, you got to do it, because what if you can never do it again?
So this is an example of how disease or illness or something something unplanned or that we don't want to experience actually becomes our teacher, right?
Yeah.
So this experience actually showed you in your body how important singing is to you.
Exactly. Because that one thing became the only thing I cared about. And I love my kids, but when I tell you, the run up to that surgery was all about me trying to record the songs that I had written during my break and all of those things. And so finishing that and then doing the surgery, and the surgery being miraculously quick and well, and I was singing like 3 weeks after, and it
Ooh,
was just
nice.
crazy. Crazy.
Wait, so
recovery.
when you started working on this recording before your surgery, is this the first time since having kids you were focusing on yourself?
I would say so, yeah.
Because that sounds like you were really called, almost forced to be selfish. Like in
I really was.
I
I had
love
gotten
that.
to a point where I could feel like I was singing at church sometimes, but that was
Mhm.
always a thing. That was almost
Mhm.
like, that's muscle memory. But when I would sing at church, I was starting to literally like feel like somebody was choking me or something, and I'm like, what is going on? And then when I finally got it checked out, 2 very large nodules in my neck, and I'm like, oh God, what if I can never do it again?
See, this is so fascinating because there are a lot of studies and a lot of case studies, even more than scientific, of therapists, me included, who clients that have thyroid nodules are a result of suppressed expression. And
Wow.
so when you're saying that you're singing at church, but it's like that's so automatic for you, that's not the same thing as singing for yourself. That's like a service to God, to your community. your throat was literally showing you. It was saying like, "Hey, listen to me. I want to
Mhm.
come out. I want to express." And so,
Mhm.
so like you did the expression, and then you got the surgery. It was successful.
Yeah.
Did that open up music for you then after that? What have
It
the last
opened
few
up
years been?
it opened up everything. Very soon after, and again, full respect, but very soon after, I realized I did not want to be married in the marriage I was in anymore.
Yeah.
And that was a long trajectory, right? I was, like I said, I was in therapy and have been since for 11 years, if not weekly, at least bi-weekly, taking very few breaks.
Mm.
And um that realization just went with everything that I was fixing. You know what I mean? Everything that was
Yes.
broken, I was fixing. I was fixing these crazy expectations. I was fixing how I really viewed the world. I was fixing my own identity, right? Where being a mother was not at the top of the list. It really was being Carolyn and figuring out what I wanted to do and what I liked.
Mm.
So all of these things were developing. And literally 4 days after I separated from my now ex husband, my father passed. 4 days.
Amazing. What did
And
that mean to you? What was that like?
so he and I had been in counseling over that year. And again, so the figuring out of it wasn't a surprise. We kind of had got to a point where we both kind of knew this
Mhm.
is going to end. And once we got to that declaration, and I, got a new lease and all of that, there was this feeling, this draw to reclaim the idea of who I was that my father had for me. My father's a very peaceful man. I always tell people I know I got my disposition from him. I don't think I have any pictures of him not smiling. Um,
Mm.
my last video of him is him rubbing my mother's feet. It was something that he would do daily for her. I mean, really the sweetest man ever. And then someone who always validated me regardless of my grades, or like he never suggested what I should do. Does that make sense? And there was
100%.
freedom. There was so much freedom in spending time with him because it was never forced, or and I was a very good student, but he would never ask me about how I felt about school or how I'm doing or about a teacher. It would always be like, what's on your mind? What do you want to do? Do you want to take a
But
walk? Do you
I might have misunderstood. I thought you said that you inherited your idea of what you should be doing from him.
I
Is that
mean the life that
something
they
like that?
created.
God, so he never
It
told you
wasn't.
you had to even do that.
Oh
You
no,
you
not at all.
observed it and internalized it.
Again, all from
That's
me.
so good to know out loud. It's so good for us to hear that. No, this is powerful to me because this whole when you're saying fixing identity, fixing what's true for me, I hear you saying I really got in touch with what was real, compared to what was expected, what was like true from my nature and desire instead of what I was projecting onto myself.
Yeah.
And you went through all these deaths, of the identity, of the business, of the money, of the house, of the relationship, and then
Mhm.
your father passes. I mean, there's something so symbolic and to me like very divine about that. Um, I don't
I
know
would
how
say
you
so.
experience. Okay, tell me how you experienced his
Exactly
death.
what it was. The beauty of this was, as I'm literally letting go of this last idea of who I'm supposed to be, this married wife, this mother of three, this coupled person. And we were married almost 14 years. So this wasn't a short marriage. This wasn't
Hmm.
an easy decision. This wasn't, once you get to that point in marriage, there's almost this thought of like, is this just a phase? Do you want to
Hmm.
just hold here? I know you don't like it right now, but let's figure it
Yeah,
out. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But the beauty of this happening within those 4 days was I got to go home and eulogize my dad. I did his eulogy. I had to write what everyone knows about him and all of that and put together his pictures. And there was something so freeing for me. And this one thought I had was, this is how it's supposed to be.
Mm, mm.
Supposed to get to the end of my life with whoever I'm with happy, having just rubbed their feet, having they were about to have breakfast, and he was in the bathtub, and that's how he passed. No breach, no pain, no struggle, no fight. There was something beautiful about talking about a man who literally I can like count on my fingers the amount of times I've seen him angry my entire life. My parents never fought. They were just pleasant, and I don't know how they did it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how these two people figured this out. Like, how did y'all give me such this idealistic life of what life is like? What?
See, but that's really what you're saying is so important for all of us listening, because we can see one person's, to go back to that word capacity you brought up, we can see one person's life, even like in this case, your parents who blessed you with this incredible upbringing because it was within their capacity and nature. And it doesn't mean it's within yours, right? And it's so nice to know that as human beings, that just because it's a great life, it might not be in our capacity and nature to replicate it. Like,
right. And they don't have to give it to us either.
No one has to give anything.
Nobody and I think it's anything.
What I love about this story, and it's confirming all my stories ahead of you, because because I purposely didn't look you up. I wanted to really just kind of meet you for the first time and see what how you felt.
Yeah.
But I felt such a depth of this woman's been through a lot, and she's the kind of person that every time she goes through what someone would call tragedy, she sees it as like a blessing, as a gift, as something to learn from. And I'm hearing that through all these experiences. And I think the one that's most profound for me out of all this is each situation taught you more about your nature and how to nurture and love your nature and not oppress it with these things you think you're supposed to be doing.
Yes. Right? Yes. Like that's what I want to teach my children.
That's right.
A lot of people are very judgmental of little Black children. They want them to be behaved, restrained, quiet, poised. My kids are kids, and they are loud, and they run, and they scream, and they throw things. And when they're with their father, he's a lot more buttoned up and disciplined. They're different children.
Yeah.
But there's something about me getting to see them unhinged that I actually enjoy.
Ooh, I love that.
Because they get to do all those things.
Well, you're unhinged now too. Like you've compared to where you've been, like you're unhinging yourself from that rigidity.
I have been doing all the things I didn't think I was supposed to do because, well, you're not rich, you shouldn't do that, and well, you have children, so you shouldn't go there.
You're not Beyonce, you shouldn't sing.
I mean, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, I can actually do all the things. I live life literally in this really weird thing, right? I co-parent. So every other week I'm completely a single woman. I'm not dating right now, but I'm a woman without a husband and without children. So every other week. And
the joy on your face right now when you say that makes me happy.
Joy in the connection that I get to have with myself during this time feeds my ability to allow my children to do the things that they like to do or interact the way they like to interact, because their behavior is not a reflection of me. I don't see that.
That's right. And because you have
their behavior.
You don't, and that's important the way you just said that, because what I find a lot of times when someone's trying to own someone's behavior is because they don't have capacity to witness the person's nature. And if you're having all this time with yourself to connect to you're building your capacity. So when you're with them, you have so much space and room inside of you to let them be wild and free and authentic.
Yeah.
I think that's important, because one thing I say to parents often is, whatever it takes for you to have capacity to parent, that's right for you. Opposed to this idea of like, I shouldn't have time to myself. I should be spending that time with my children. If you have this time and it makes you like this amazing mother, that's natural. That's your way to mother. That's your way to parent.
Exactly. So I'll say this really quickly too, because this is another marker of me accepting kind of this is my idea and not what my children need. So we would go to Hawaii every year. Again, my own psychosis about there has to be a family vacation. There has to be
Yeah.
Disneyland every year, like this whole thing. And so this year I'm like, we're gonna go back to Hawaii because we went in June 2021, but this year I wanted to go back. And so all my children have been to multiple islands. And this is just my craziness. And I'm like, we can go back to Oahu or we'll go to Kauai. And they're like, Mom, we don't want to go to Hawaii this year. Like they got together to tell me.
An intervention with you.
It was like, ma'am, we don't want to do that.
What they want to do instead?
There wasn't an instead.
That's so nice. They're just content.
I think they were very heavily impacted by this pandemic. They are definitely homebodies now. We were masked up. I mean, we still mask them up when they go to school. Both my ex-husband nor I have had COVID, so we were just extremely careful, and not to say people who have had it are not careful, but we were just very strict, and nobody comes to our house, that type of thing. Like it was very controlled because we wanted to protect their health and my mother's health as well. Because I had lost my father, so I don't want to lose my mom.
Yeah.
So long story short, they're very comfortable at home. They don't need all the activities. They don't need to do a lot of things. And again, that's another thing that I have to put to bed right now. I haven't even talked about it, but in middle school and high school, I was what I call the all athlete all year long. It was cross country, volleyball,
flight response. That's flight response. It's like when you talk about your kids, and like I called it an intervention because they were pausing you. Like you were like going into this. We're gonna do this and this and that, and they're like, "Wait a minute, Mom, we're all coming here to tell you we're good. Let's not do that." That pause for those of you listening, that when we get paused like that, we have to actually retrain. I don't even like the words retrain, but like reteach or unlearn in our bodies. The stillness isn't dangerous, that the stillness doesn't make us less than, that the stillness doesn't equal something bad's going to happen.
So this is where my practice of self-care has started, and this is what the pandemic showed me. I had to pause. I had to not go to all of the places. I could not go to I'm in the music industry. What do? Go to events, go to the things, show up at the studios, meet people. All of those things needed to pause. And so that's when I started to fall in love with nature. That's when I literally go to a garden at least once a week. I'm a member. I've been a member at each garden the last 3 or 4 years. Each of my favorite gardens in LA, but generally I could do garden tours if I wanted to. Like I walk labyrinths a lot. If I have a really big thing happening with me, I'll go to, there's a few places in LA that have beautiful labyrinths. And I walk the labyrinths. I watch sunsets. I watch sunrises. Like I now need all of those things to start my day, to remind me everything you need is right here. There's nothing that you need to find or seek. It's just all right here. You literally can walk outside of your door and everything you need is here. And that has helped me. So now I just sing my songs and take care of my kids. And I do travel, but it's generally to do really serene things.
That's really special that you say that. So I want to say, you've taught us a lot here. You've taught us that identity based on what was internalized, not what anyone said, but what was internalized and what was observed, created this expected identity that you did let yourself live up to, and it impacted your health and your happiness and your life. And then you started listening to that and releasing these things that were your identity, which is very hard to do. You released one by one by one by one until you essentially, in my visuals, as you're releasing these things you were grasping at, you started coming back to you. And now you're in this self relationship that you're able to live a life now where there's more contentment and less grasping. I just want to thank you for teaching us that and sharing your story with us. And y'all are going to love this song that was about to come up. It's everything we're talking about here, and it's gorgeous. Your voice is so good, and the arrangements are so good. It is like the groove. It is so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
No, for real. But I want to thank you just for being you. and for all the wisdom you brought, on my page that inspired me to reach out to you. And let us know, listening, where people can find you.
I'm Music Carolyn, so you can find me around the web. I have a website, Music Carolyn, if you want to just binge on all my stuff. But otherwise, you can find me around on Luisa's page. Leave a comment when they talk about freezer flight.
She'll be there.
I'll be there. Okay, or overcoupling. I've had to snatch back my reactions so many times.
Thank you, my friend. It's been a pleasure to sit with you.
For sure. So really that's where they can find me. Just search Music Carolyn. And The One is the name of the single. It really is an encapsulation of all this, what I've shared today, literally years and years of literally brick by brick, removing this facade of who I was supposed to be and just accepting myself for what I am and just saying, like, I'm fine with people. I love people, but I'm the one I'm looking for. I'm the one who I'm really trying to figure out. And that's my project, right?
So everyone sit back. Let's have a listen to this beautiful song.
If left alone, who would I become? And if I wasn't looking, could I find it on my own? Should I heal and focus on myself? Could I be the love I always wanted? Took some time for me to see that I'm not missing anything. I'm the one that I've been looking for. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one. The one that I've been looking for. I look in the mirror and everything's clear. No one left to blame, 'cause finally I got me. No distractions, so there's no excuses. I give myself what I always wanted. Took some time for me to see that I'm not missing anything. I'm the one that I've been looking for. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one that I've been looking for. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one that I've been looking for. Now I'm free to dream my own dreams. I know the way, 'cause it's just for me. Now I'm brave enough to go it alone. I know the way, it's just for me. 'Cause I'm the one.
That's the end of today's episode. Now let's take a moment to notice where we feel the episode in our bodies. Close your eyes. Take a breath. And let whatever wants to come up, come up. And remember, those sensations hold the wisdom that we're looking for. If you want to go deeper, visit holisticlifenavigation.com.